if this is the style of offense you're going to have, you've got to have that type of quarterback, a guy that can, again, move around.
Bros, we've been living together now for 6 months, and while building pillow forts and playing Halo 2 every night has been a literal dream come true, we have a problem. Somebody has been stealing all of my Oreos. I let it go the first couple times, but not any longer.
What is that?
That is a state-of-the-art polygraph machine. I need answers. We're getting them right now.
I mean, it looks like you got it out of a 90s cereal box or something. Right. I mean, it says game on it. Did you get it from Temu or something?
No. Okay, yeah, I did. Fine. But look, it works.
Sure, that's fair.
Paul, you're going to go first. Please state your name.
Okay. Paul Myers.
Age?
35.
Okay. All right. Did you fart last night while we were watching Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
I don't see how that's relevant to
Please answer the
anything
question.
with Oreos. No.
I knew it was you, and you blame me. And you know that I lost my sense of smell during COVID. But guess what? Thanks to all of that, it came back. The first thing I smelled in years.
Okay,
Thanks.
fine. It was me. But bros, you know what popcorn does to me. It tears me up. Junk food in general, I just steer clear of it for that very reason. That's why I would have never taken to Oreos.
And yet, the question remains. Did you steal my Oreos?
No.
Is it true that you think Paul Blart Mall Cop is a better movie than Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Right. The Holy Grail is one of the best comedy classics of all time.
Agreed. I was just making sure the thing worked. Tanner, you're next.
How do we know that you didn't eat them and then forget? Because you literally forget everything all the time.
Please state your name. Just state your
He
name.
does. Okay, whatever, dude. Tanner Iglio.
Okay. Oreo thief says what?
What?
So you did steal it.
No, dude, if we're going to do this, can we at least take it seriously, please?
Seriously? Okay. Is it true that you went on a date with Paul's ex-girlfriend a month after they broke up?
Pass?
You can't pass.
Okay, look, man, calm down. It wasn't a date. Oh, okay, look, we didn't even hold hands. Okay, look, her hand brushed mine. It was that weird thing where we didn't know what we were going to do, and then it just happened. She brushed my hand. The thing, what am I supposed to do? Just not grab it?
Seriously?
Okay, the most serious thing we did, if you can even call it that, is share Wordle answers. It's not that big of a deal. Dude, don't do that. It's not that big of a deal. Just ask the next question, man.
Kate? Did you steal my Oreos?
No, I didn't.
Well, I don't know what to tell y'all. Somebody stole my Oreos. This thing must be defective.
I still think it was you, because you haven't even asked a question yet of yourself.
True. Tanner? Think. How can I steal something that I bought?
I don't know.
Well, I know something that was stolen.
Oh,
Gloria Gomez.
Dude, I did not steal her. Maybe you pushed her away by nuking her during every movie and then blaming her for
Guys,
it. I can't believe
focus
that.
up.
And you,
The
for the
Oreos,
record,
they're missing.
By the way,
we're on a mission. This
Paul Blart,
is our mission.
He might be the
One
best
of you stole
Segway
them.
pilot
I'm not
the
sure
world has
who
ever seen.
did.
And
But
then he
I hope
brought us
that I can find
King
them
of
soon.
Queens.
Bros,
I
all right?
just
I need them because they are missing. Bros, hold on 1 second, okay?
What are y'all yelling
I'm
about?
trying to figure out who stole my...
All right, I'm gonna leave y'all to it. Peace.
It should go without saying, but none of that is actually true. Tanner did not date an ex-girlfriend of Paul's that I know of, and we just used our real names. That was it. None of it was true, except the bit about Monty Python, one of the great comedy classics of all time. I just like writing comedy skits. In another life somewhere, I'm a comedy writer. I'm an aspiring one. But none of it actually happened. However, I do want to tell you a story about me that actually did happen, and I'm pretty ashamed of. Sounds like a super fun way to start today, I feel like. But yeah, I'm going to tell you this story. I might chuckle a little bit through it, but that's going to be, I'm still really ashamed of it, okay? But here it is. When I was growing up, I was a teenager. We were hanging out. I used to hang out with friends all the time in my neighborhood. We would ride dirt bikes. We would do all sorts of teenagery stuff in the neighborhood. It was a lot of fun. We would do this all summer, pretty much every day. Except there was this one friend we had. We had this friend who, whenever she hung out with us, it became a horrible experience. I'm just going to tell you honestly, okay? This is how I felt then. It's just raw feeling, all right? She was just mean, okay? She was bossy. She was rude. She was demanding. And frankly, she just wasn't that much fun to hang out with. But because we were all in a neighborhood making lots of noise on the dirt bikes, like I said, it's not like it was very hard to find us if we were all hanging out, right? So even if we hadn't included her on the invite, she would just show up anyway, which meant we were kind of stuck, right? We weren't just going to like run away from her or ride dirt bikes away or whatever. One summer in particular, I don't quite remember how old I was, but me and a few of the other guys decided that we were going to get back at her for the way she treated us, just how mean she was, all that. The plan was simple. We were finally going to ask her to hang out with us, except we were never actually going to hang out with her. And this is the part that's bad, okay? What we did is we called her up and we asked her to hang out. We told her, hey, we're all going to meet in the cul-de-sac in like an hour, 30 minutes, whatever it was. Unbeknownst to her, the rest of us would go like 20 minutes early, or maybe right after the phone call. And we would hide in the woods nearby. Not in the cul-de-sac, in the woods nearby with a view of the cul-de-sac, just so we could see her show up and nobody be there. Yeah, I feel bad for saying it. It's terrible. I know, it's bad. But it happened. We're authentic around here, so there it is. If it makes you feel any better about me being an ordained pastor, the group did eventually get a good relationship going with her. And eventually to the point where we would frequently meet at her house and start whatever we were doing there. So we came around, we learned our lesson, we quit being dumb, but not before we could have done some serious damage. And the crux of the issue here, other than me just being a degenerate, is what happens when we say we're going to do one thing and don't do it. When we commit to something and don't follow through. See, what I did in this story, it was done with malicious intent. But I've said I was going to do something or made commitments with great intent before that I still failed to execute. And the potential results are the same, and regardless of intent. Hurt feelings, damaged relationships, and most critically, a lack of trust. Can we be honest with one another? We all do this from time to time, don't we? Again, maybe you're not as bad as I was, but all of us go back on our word sometimes. We all commit to something and don't follow through. We all say we're going to do one thing, but then do something different. We may mean to do whatever it is we said, but it happens all the same. It's like a disease that plagues us. And according to Jesus, it's a serious integrity issue. But fortunately, it has a simple cure. Now, you've probably heard it said that we should all be people of integrity, but maybe you've never heard it said this way before. Again, you have heard that it was said to people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Now, if you haven't been able to make it during this series so far, I'm going to catch you up real quick. All right, these verses right here and the ones we're covering in this series, they're just a snippet of the most famous sermon ever told, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. During this series, we've been taking a look at 6 different statements Jesus made that all begin with some version of, "You have heard it said," where Jesus is exposing the loopholes people are trying to create in the laws of God. And he's reminding them of why those laws exist in the first place. So in these few verses, Jesus is addressing an issue people of his day had, where they would make promises or oaths, although we don't use that language anymore really, but they made these promises that they believed weren't binding because they didn't, quote, swear to God. Some of the first books of the Bible talk about swearing oaths to God and sort of the repercussions of not following through on those things. And we don't have time to dig into all that today, but the point is this: they were making promises without the intent of following through. They were saying one thing and doing another. And that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Our culture is full of people who say things they don't mean, promise and don't deliver, commit and don't act, however you want to say it. It's full of them. And as much as we like to point the finger at other people for this behavior, we don't do politics around here at all, but isn't that one of the major criticisms of politicians, right? They don't do the things they say they're going to do. It's not just them, though. It's a sickness that infects so many of us. Telling ourselves that we're going to go to the gym every day, only to stop after 1 or 2 sessions. Committing to eating right, only to get that late night snack or hit up the drive-thru. Promising God that we're going to get our lives together and make him a priority, only to keep living the same way we always have. All of us are capable of doing that. And it's that kind of thing that Jesus is really getting at here. He's using oath-making as a means to an end because it was relevant for the people he was physically talking to in that moment. But what he's really trying to tell all of us is that our knack to say something and then not do it, or the reverse, say we're not going to do something and then do it, that's an integrity issue that causes all sorts of problems for everybody. And that's why this sentence at the end is so simple. All you need to say is simply yes or no. This is Jesus' cure to the disease. I got 2 kids. It's pretty well documented at this point, ages 5 and 2, and particularly my 5-year-old daughter, Oakland. She's still firmly in the stage where she doesn't seem to struggle with this at all. Like, she has no problem telling it exactly how it is or how she sees it, right? In fact, she's like brutally honest sometimes. Sometimes I mean like, yo, you gotta be less honest right now, okay? Like, I don't say that, of course, but I think it. There's something she used to do. She doesn't do it as much anymore, but she used to do this thing where whenever she would be feeling like particularly happy or content at home, and we're all sitting in the living room maybe together, she'd look around in the room and say something like, "Oh, I love my family." Oh, so sweet. Makes you feel warm inside. That is until she would keep going. "Oh, I love my family. There's tiny Luca," that's her brother. "Little Oakland." We have a dog named Mala. She would say something about Mala. I don't know. Fuzzy Mala, something like that. But she'll do these hand motions to like represent the approximate size of everybody. Yeah. I don't need to finish. Yeah, you already know what's going to happen. No, she'd be like, there's tiny Luca, there's little Oakland, there's, Mala, there's medium Mama, and huge Daddy. She would extend her arms as far as possible, as if to suggest that pantomiming my size is beyond human capability. And although I realize now she's not making a judgment statement about my body or not so subtly calling me fat. She's not doing that. But even still, I can't help but go, come on, man, huge. Like, what even is huge, right? Like, it's all relative. Try and get existential on her or something. Okay, not really. What I would do is like to myself, just be like, not that bad. The truth is though, she's just being honest about what she sees, right? I mean, compared to her, I am in fact huge. Yeah, that might sting a little bit, but I really am grateful that she's just willing to say exactly what she sees and what she feels. Because as I mentioned a bit ago, that's better than what a lot of us tend to do, which we're gonna, of course, talk about more in just a bit. But Oakland, even though she probably doesn't know it, in fact, I'm sure she doesn't know it, and it probably is not going to stay that way if history is any indicator, she's doing exactly what Jesus told us all to do. All you need to say is simply yes or no. I'm not trying to over-spiritualize what she does, but it is distributing or displaying integrity. She's saying what she means. She's talking about what she feels. In this sentence, this statement from Jesus, it's great because there's no riddle to solve here, right? There's no parable to interpret. Sometimes Jesus would tell these elaborate stories to get across truth, but not here. There's no deep theological debate we have to have over this. Jesus literally could not make this any clearer. All you need to say is simply yes or no. We could put it another way, though. Do what you say you're going to do. Fulfill your commitments and be who you say you're going to be. It's a simple message with major implications. Implications like the health of our relationships, the status of our reputation, the level of respect others have for us. They all hinge in a way on you and I getting this right. But more importantly than that, for people who follow Jesus, his relationships and his reputation and his respect, the respect people have for him, that hangs in the balance too. Because keep in mind, as followers of Jesus, our purpose is to become like Jesus. That's it. Therefore, we represent Jesus to the rest of the world. A world full of people who seem to resent each other more than ever and for sure don't trust each other. So if we go around as Christ followers doing the opposite of what Jesus is telling us here, not only will they lose respect and trust for us, of course, but also who we claim to be like, Jesus. Jesus will be the one folks have trust issues with, and it would be impossible for me to overstate just how detrimental that is. So it is critical that we get this right, because the implications of getting it wrong, well, I could just tell you, but I thought maybe I could show you what happens when we don't get this right. Through a visual example that it has been helpful to me. Hopefully it is helpful to you. But in front of me, I got two boxes. One that says yes and one that says no. Now, these boxes represent the two inevitable ends of every request that I'm given or you're given, the commitments we start, the promises we make. Now, I know there's more ways to answer a question or do any of that than just yes and no. It's not always so black and white, it feels like. But in reality, if you really think about it, every response ends up in one of these two places, right? Like, take for example, will you go to the park with me? I could say, well, I don't know. Let me think about it. And let's say I never get back to you and I don't come. Well, guess my answer was no then. Or I do get back to you and I do go. My answer was yes. So for the sake of this example, these are our two responses. Inside the box, however, there are slips of paper that have written on them what I am actually trying to say or what I actually feel. So imagine anytime you ask me something or I ask you something, or maybe I make some sort of promise to you or whatever, however I can respond yes or no. Whenever I respond, you could reach inside of the corresponding box and pick out a piece of paper to know exactly what I meant. Imagine we could do that to each other. And this is how we're going to start easy. Let's say you ask me, are you doing well today? I say, yes. However, what I really meant was, but I don't feel like talking about it. Okay, fair enough. We can all agree that that's not too bad, right? I mean, technically, I didn't mean yes when I said it. But perhaps we're just not in the right setting to talk about this. I haven't processed what I'm going through enough. So me talking about it wouldn't be very helpful to you or me. But had I actually said no, had I responded completely, truthfully, or totally forthcoming, you would have asked a very well-meaning but poorly timed follow-up, which wouldn't have been your fault, by the way. It just would have happened. So I said yes, even though maybe I'm not feeling all right, but that, sometimes that feels like it's okay, right? However, it's not just that, is it? Suppose Angie or Lenny, who are my bosses, they ask me, hey, can you give me those small group numbers by the end of the week? Yeah, no problem. Yes, I'm going to say yes. And I really do mean to do it, except, oh man, would you look at that? I'm going to forget. Hey man, it happens to everybody, right? We all forget sometimes. Lenny and Angie have grace for that kind of thing, for sure. but they still need the information. And even with the slack they'd be willing to give, they're not going to forget right away that I forgot. Especially if, and let's face it, when it happens again. Because unfortunately for me, I got a whole pile of these I forgots in my yes box. Am I the only one? Because just like Lenny and Angie, if you ask me to do something or to help you with something, and I keep on forgetting, what are you going to do? It doesn't matter how forgetful I am at that point, does it? You're going to stop asking me because you no longer trust me to get it done or to follow through. Another one. Except let's do a no this time, okay? Megan, my wife, pulls the milk out of the fridge. Did you put the empty jug back in the fridge? Look around. Who are you talking to? Me? No. Which is my way of saying, well, if you tilt the corner, you can see milk build up in the bottom. That's like half a glass, woman. No, this card does not say that, because if it did, I might die. But you get it. I'm trying to exploit a technicality. Technically, no. There is technically still milk in there, although I know that's not relevant to the original question. I know what she meant. She, of course, knows what she meant. I'm just trying to avoid being caught. Of course, I'm not avoiding it. It's a silly example, but it's a small one. And that's the thing. These three examples, they're kind of small, right? They aren't a huge deal at the end of the day. And if we only said one thing and did another with the small stuff, then maybe Jesus wouldn't have wasted his breath talking about it. But it's not just the small stuff, is it? Like, Dad, are you coming to my graduation? Yeah, you bet I am. Well, I don't know how to tell you no without hurting your feelings. Hey, Mom, you had a doctor's appointment today. Anything we should know? No, I'm fine. Actually, my situation is really bad, but I don't want you to worry about me. How about this one? Can you pray for me? Yeah, absolutely I will. I'm going to forget. This dang card. Hey, babe, I'm going to make this big purchase. Are you with me? Yeah, let's do it. Well, no, I'm not. But it brings me a ton of anxiety, actually. But I don't want to disappoint you, although now I'm going to resent you. Maybe you make a commitment to yourself. Not going to drink, not going to use, not going to look, not going to do any of that anymore. It's just once. What's the problem? You see why it's a problem, right? It's no wonder why people struggle to trust other people, why some people struggle to trust even themselves. Because far too many of us have yes boxes full of junk that is anything but yes. Our no boxes, they're stuffed to the brim with technicalities and contradictions, leaving no actual room for no's. Let me ask you this. Hypothetically, you don't got to raise your hand, you don't got to write it down, but think about it for you honestly. If I could reach inside of your yes box whenever you told me yes, would I pull back only yeses? Or would I pull back half-truths? Or things you say just to make me feel better? Things you say to make yourself feel better? If I could reach inside your no box, would I only pull no's back, or would I get technicalities or contradictions? Maybe just straight up lies. That's the issue. The more and more we continue to do that, the deeper our trust issues will become, until it gets to the point where we're going to refuse to trust anybody. And I know some folks here today who already feel that way. Like you can't trust somebody, anybody. And if that's you, I'm sorry. It must feel like such a lonely place. And that's hard. It's isolating. It's debilitating sometimes. But without knowing specifically what got you there, I'm willing to bet it was some version of this. It was because someone or some people who you once trusted and you were once close to, they said yes and no, and they meant something totally different. They said one thing, they did another. They broke too many promises. They didn't turn out to be the person they told you they were. And all those empty yeses or nos, they piled up till it was too much. Now you're scared and afraid to trust anybody. Because let's face it, if you never have to trust anybody again, you feel like you're never going to have to go through that again. But you know inside as well as I do that nobody wants to live that way. You weren't designed to live that way. God created us to collaborate and commiserate and celebrate life together. And that's why Jesus was so adamant, put it so plainly. All you need to say is simply yes or no, because the foundation of every single meaningful relationship a person can have, it's trust. Whether it's friends or coworkers, your spouse, kids, parents, yourself even. And trust can only be built when we are people of integrity, when we are people who do the things we say we're going to do, who fulfill our commitments, and we are the people we say we are. That's how we build trust. And that's how we can enter into deeper community, more rich relationships, and of course, draw closer to God. But how do we do it? It's a simple teaching we've established, but it seems rather difficult in its execution, as we've seen. We can't just leave here today, flip a switch, and just do this well all the time. So where can we start? There's probably a lot of answers to that question, but for me, the most obvious place to begin is to just write it down. Keep track of the things you said, who you said it to, the commitments that you've made. And I say write it down right here because that makes sense, it's practical. But what I really mean is keep some sort of record somehow, whether that's writing it in a journal, putting it on the calendar on your phone or on your fridge, telling people you're close to, like in your family, that you've made commitments. Whatever it is, write it down, track it somehow, and not up here. Okay? As a guy who likes to think that I can keep it all straight up here, that could not be further from the truth. Just the other day, literally, as I was in process of preparing for this message today, I reached out to a couple of the other pastors here on staff. You saw them in the video, some of my best friends, Tanner and Ellis, and I asked them if we could go catch the second Dune movie in theaters. I'm a big fan. It was a Thursday when we made the plan, and we made the plan to go early Saturday afternoon. So we get it straight. Some of them even changed their plans to get this working. So I wake up on Friday, I'm psyched, I'm hyped. It's been forever since I've been to a movie. But then I remember, crap, I already have plans for Saturday afternoon, 1 hour after the movie starts. So I had to send the super embarrassing text to them saying, hey, so I know I was the one who made plans for tomorrow, but I just remembered that I have something during the movie that I can't miss. So, sorry, y'all got to go without me. And I felt like such a loser for sending the text. I mean, I was a loser, let's just be honest. And it's a good thing I even remembered. Because imagine I'm sitting in the movie having just dropped my life savings on tickets, only to get a text saying, where are you? That would have been a nightmare. And quite frankly, it would have been a complete disaster. Fortunately, through no work of my own, I have great friends. And plans ended up changing, so we could catch the movie worry-free, but I was this close to creating a disaster scenario. It was way too close for comfort. It's all because I didn't do a good job of tracking what I said I was going to do. And it's as simple as putting it on my calendar, like I said, right when the plans get made. Or maybe telling Megan, my wife, about it. So there's someone else who just knows, you know. So I have a couple of checks and balances. And it wouldn't be her fault, of course, if I forgot. But the fact remains, there's just a process in place to make sure I don't forget what I said I was going to do. There's 1,000 ways to do this well. You got to find the one that works well for you and start keeping a record of what you said you were going to do so you actually follow through. Because not only is this going to help you do that, follow through more effectively, but you'll get the added benefit of an actual visual of everything you have on your plate, so to speak. And once you see that, if you're anything like me, you'll look at this list and you'll start to notice, wow, this is a long list. Yeah, we tend to say and take on a lot of stuff, don't we? So maybe it's time for all of us to make fewer commitments. Quit saying yes to so much stuff. Look, I think a lot of us fight this temptation to say yes and make promises to all sorts of requests, even though we can't handle all of it and we know it. Maybe for you, you feel bad for potentially letting somebody down by telling them no or hurting their feelings. Maybe you have chronic FOMO. If you don't know, that's the fear of missing out. Maybe you have FOMO, so you say yes to things knowing that you're biting off more than you can chew. Maybe you're making a commitment to yourself to be better, to get in shape, to read more, whatever it is. But again, you don't actually have the time or bandwidth to do those things because you've already said yes to all these other things already. And what happens when we do this is we inevitably let something slip through the cracks. No one person can juggle all the things we tend to load ourselves up with. And here's the great irony of it all, right? Is that what you likely tried to avoid by saying yes to something you couldn't follow through on, that ends up happening because you said yes. You do, in fact, let somebody down because you can't follow through or give the thing the time it deserves. Whereas had you said no on the front end, they would have had more time to ask somebody else or make new plans, and maybe it would have been fine. I know I've read Jesus' words a lot today. All you need to say is simply yes or no. But I want to make sure something is crystal clear here, because I have this sense that I'll explain in just a second. Even though it says it plainly, we might not read it that way. But here's the truth. Jesus did not say we had to say yes to everything. I've been around the block a lot in the church, and I don't just mean PCC, although I've been here a while. I mean the church as a whole, grew up in the church, been involved in the church for a long time, long enough to know that built into the culture of church is this unspoken idea that Christians should say yes to everything or else they're not being as Christ-like as they could be. And yes, let me just say it is true that we are called and expected to give a disproportionate amount of ourselves in service to God. We are supposed to do that. But what's also true is this: Jesus did not and would not say yes to everything. What Jesus does is everything he says he's going to do, whether that's a yes or a no. And you don't have to say yes to everything either. Many of us would do well to make fewer commitments so that we can actually follow through on the ones we need to make. There's so many ways that you and I could tackle this directive from Jesus. So figure out what works best for you and do it. Just like anything we talk about here at PCC, the doing it is the key. We could talk in circles all day about what this looks like, but it's pointless if we don't actually take action. We must put Jesus' words into place, because a world devoid of trust needs people who they can actually trust. A world full of people longing for truth and purpose and hope desperately needs what Jesus offers them. And we can give it to them. But we have to do the things we say we're going to do. We have to fulfill our commitments. And we got to be the people we say we are each and every day. Because once Christ followers figure this out and make it a part of who they are, well, everything can change. Everything will change. Now, I know. That sounds idyllic. We say it all the time. It sounds impossible. But it's really not that hard. All you need to say is simply yes or no.
If a world full of distrust becomes full of trustworthy people pursuing Jesus, then we really can see change. If we'll do the things that we say we're going to do, fulfill our commitments, and be the people that we say we're going to be, the trust we build will open the door so that we can give them what Jesus has to offer. So put a plan in action. Track what you've said and committed to so that you can follow through. If you need to, make fewer commitments so you can focus on the ones that you already have. Find out what works best for you and ask God to shape you into a person of integrity, and then practice it. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great week, and invite a friend to join you next week when you come back. We'll see you then.